Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today we are going to be doing my September wrap up. So I'm going to be, my top looks really open. And today I'm going to be doing I've totally lost my train of thought. Talking about all the books I'm going to be reading in September. So I read about 12 books in September, which I'm very proud of because I had a very busy month with uni and running around A&E, which was really good. I really enjoyed it, but it was a lot. Like, I'm really tired now. So I'm looking forward to GP placement, which might be a little bit more chill. So yeah, so let's just get started on the wrap up. I read some really good books this month. I think I gave out quite a few 5 stars, so I mean, I'm pretty generous with ratings anyway, but still. Yeah, I read some really good books. So the first book I read was The Counsellor by E.J. Beaton. And I gave this one 4.25 stars, so I really enjoyed this. The audiobook, I was very excited because the audiobook's narrated by Moira Quick, who does the Gideon the Ninth audiobooks, so I really like her narration, and I think that definitely kind of added to my enjoyment. So in this one, basically following Lysande, who is this kind of palace scholar, and she has her queen, who I think the queen's called Cerelyn. And basically at the start of the book, Cerelyn dies. She's poisoned. And Cerelyn has left this like note saying Lysande is now in charge of picking the next ruler. So Lysande's kind of elevated from this like palace scholar to this counsellor. So she then has to choose between these 4 rulers to see who's going to be like the next ruler of the empire. Yeah, they like rule their own individual domains, and then she has to pick who's going to be like super in charge. So yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot of politics and there's a bit of a kind of murder mystery because she's trying to work out who killed Cerelyn because she thinks it's one of these other 4. Lysande's a really great character. She's like she's so funny. She's like the inner anxious, horny, bisexual in us all. But yeah, she's so good. And I really like some of the relationships explored in the book. They're kind of a bit like not different from what you normally see in books, but they're quite interesting. They're never straightforward. And then yeah, I like the kind of, I was really confused for a while between the relationship between Lysande and Cerelyn the queen, because it's kind of a bit hero worshipy, and I thought at first it was sort of like Lysande had kind of a crush on her, but then I think it becomes more clear it's more of like a mother-daughter type relationship, because I assumed Cerelyn was quite young, but apparently she's quite old, so yeah, so it's quite interesting that, and then various different other relationships Lysande has with other characters. I really liked exploring those, and I really liked all the side characters, especially the 4 rulers. They were all really interesting, and 2 of them have a little thing of their own going on, and that was really cute. But yeah, the politics is really good. I like the kind of themes thing, the people who are kind of magical and have these like elemental powers are almost a bit persecuted, which I thought was interesting. I mean, it's a fairly standard fantasy plot in that regard, but I liked it. I thought it was well done. So yeah, I enjoyed that one. I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're looking for kind of a political fantasy. I think I've heard it described as Machiavellian. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but that is how it's described. So yeah, very heavy on the politics, which I really love. And some great characters, so yeah, would recommend. And then I read my favourite book of the month, and that is Wisdom of Crowds by J.R. Abercrombie. And I have this lovely hardcover edition sent to me by the publisher. So yeah, look, oh, there's the lion. Oh, just reminds me of Leo seeing the lion. Yes, I love this one. I gave it 5 stars, and this is the concluding book to the Age of Madness trilogy, which I've loved the whole trilogy. I honestly can't decide which one's my favourite in the trilogy, but The Wisdom of Crowds is really good. And I thought it was a very fitting conclusion. And I think the themes in this series are so good. They just look at the kind of dangers of like populism and the kind of foils of revolution, and I just think it's really good. And I love the characters so much. Yeah, I'm gonna do a full like video review for The Wisdom of Crowds, so, and I'll do non-spoilery and spoilery, so if you want more of my thoughts then you can see that video. But yeah, I just absolutely loved it. Can't recommend this series enough. And the last like third, because the book's kind of split into 3 parts, the last part was absolutely insane. Like, some of the revelations are just so good. Yeah, and you realise like what's been going on the whole time, and it's like and it does one of my favourite things where it's kind of but with a plot twist, it's when you realise what the plot twist is about like half a page or a page before it happens, and then you just have this impending sense of doom, and I just thought that was done so well here. Yeah, so I really like it. So the direction certain characters went in was so like good, and oh, I will always love these characters so much. Would definitely recommend. And if you didn't like the first lot like me, then definitely give this series a try because I love it. Yeah, so that's that one. I feel like I can't say too much because it would all be like spoilery, but yeah, I don't know, I just really liked it, so yeah. Okay, and then I read Gilded by Marissa Meyer, which I gave 4 stars, and this is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, which I really enjoyed actually. I love Rumpelstiltskin retellings, not that I've read many of them. I think I've only read Spinning Silver, but I like that one. And also, it reminded me of the TV show Once Upon a Time. I always like Rumpel, the character of Rumpelstiltskin in that show. I don't know, he was just one of my favourites. He was like very sort of morally grey and interesting to watch, so yeah. I was excited for this one, and Marissa Meyer's writing is just very kind of comforting. It's like kind of cotton candy type thing. I don't know why I just said cotton candy, it's candy floss. Me thinking I'm American. But yeah, it's just kind of nostalgic and sweet. And so we're basically following Cerilda, who is this kind of village, what are they called? Weaver? No. Miller? Village miller's daughter. And she has this story around her birth, but basically she's kind of been blessed or cursed by the god of lies. So she's really good at telling lies, and she tells all these stories, and people kind of believe her. So then one day she's out and she helps these like forest fae folk hide from this evil like Lord of the Wild Hunt. He tells this Lord of the Wild Hunt that she can spin straw into gold. So then the Lord kidnaps her and takes her to this like other realm of like, it's like a death realm almost, and tells her to spin this straw into gold. So she's a bit stuck on this. I mean, this is the story of Rumpelstiltskin. So then this mysterious character shows up called Gilded, who in exchange for a bargain turns all the straw into gold for Cerilda. And then Cerilda and Gilded kind of have this like thing going on where it's like bargaining between them, and then every time Cerilda gets kidnapped to turn the straw into gold, then they have to like bargain something else away. And it's very interesting. I love Gilded as a character. He's one of those like sassy trickster characters. Reminds me a lot of like the Loki archetype is what I call it. And he was a very interesting character actually. I like the way how the setting and the characters sort of tied into this backstory of what had happened. I thought it was good. And I like the kind of different realms, like it's almost like you cross over in this haunted castle, which is cool. And actually I thought it was a lot more kind of atmospheric than other Marissa Meyer books that I've read. It reminded me probably more of Spinning Silver, just the kind of, it was very like woodlandy and like fae folk and like haunted castles, and I just thought that was really good. I liked the atmosphere a lot. Yeah, so I enjoyed it. I feel like the romance, questionable. I thought it was cute, but like it didn't really need it. But I like Cerilda as a character. She was good, and I'm definitely interested in book 2. Although, yeah, one thing I will say, there's a quite, I don't know how YA this book is. Like it clearly reads as YA, but there's a certain, towards the end, there's a certain plot which comes into play, which I don't think would really, not that it wouldn't be suitable, but I don't know how much like 13, 14-year-olds, it's not really kind of almost relevant to them. Like it's a bit of a out of left field type thing. Like it's something you wouldn't expect to see in a YA book. I don't think I'm explaining this very well unless you've read it. But yeah, that was a tiny bit strange, that kind of side of the plot. I understand why it was done, and I wonder if it's probably part of the original folktale, maybe, I don't know. That was a little bit like, what's going on here? Then I read Lord of Eternal Night, which I just saw on Twitter, and I think it's like a vampire book, and I was kind of into vampires, so I wanted to read this. And it's by like an Own Voices, a Killian author, which I'm always trying to read more of, because I feel like often Achillean books are written by women, so it's good to try and read ones written by men, actual queer men. And I have read one of Ben Alderson's books before, but I didn't really like it that much, but I really like this one. It was, I feel like just the whole like vampire witch versus each other, and they're both trying to kill each other, but then they fall in love. I don't know, I just thought it was really entertaining. The main reason I read this, to be honest, was the cover. I thought it was really stunning, and also the vampires. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's basically the main character, whose name I can't even remember, goes to this castle because every year they like send someone to the, or it might not be every year, but every few years they send someone to this castle where this like vampire lord lives to be his like sacrifice. But this time the main character goes with the intent of killing him because he's got like, the main character's got witch magic. So yeah, and then basically the lord of the night turns out not to be such a monster, and you get the gist. It's a fairly straightforward story, but I actually really liked it. The characters were very lovable and I like the romance, and the ending actually was quite dramatic, so I enjoyed that, and like the angst was good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I gave it like 4 stars, I think. Yeah, it was enjoyable. If you're just looking for something like quick and fun and angsty and romantic and vampires, I would definitely recommend. Then I read Into the Drowning Deep, which I gave 5 stars, and I love this one. It's so much. I like Middle Game by Sean Maguire, but I didn't like that much the Wayward Children series. So this one is by Mira Grant, but it is Sean Maguire, the pen names of each other. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So we're following this ship which is going off to the Mariana Trench, where a few years ago another ship went missing, and it kind of came back as a ghost ship, so like all the people who'd been on it had died and like there was no bodies to be found or anything. Actually, I'm sure the entire ship went missing actually, but there was this strange footage that came out at the time of these strange like siren creatures or mermaids. So now this new crew is going on this like security on this ship which has beefed up security, which you know is going to go wrong, out to the same place to try and see if they can find out about these mermaids. So on the ship you have various different characters. So like one of the main characters, Tori, her sister was on the original ship that went missing, so she's almost trying to avenge her sister. And then you have another character called Olivia, who's like a filmer, no, not a filmer, she's like a reporter, journalist type thing. So she's not one of the scientists. Most of the people on the ship are scientists, and that was actually one of the things I really loved about the book, was the science, like just the way it kind of explored the like ocean and what a powerful like majestic entity the ocean is, and how it's weird because it made me think like humans, I mean this was a fact I knew, but it made me think about it more. It's like humans know more about outer space than they do about the bottom of the ocean. So I just think it's really interesting, and I think it perfectly captured the kind of haunting, like mysterious quality of the ocean. So yeah, I just love that, and I like the kind of horror elements as well with the mermaids, and how the kind of tension builds throughout the book. And it would make such a good like TV show. Just some of the scenes, oh, I can just like picture them. And I liked all the different characters from kind of various different like backgrounds and things. Seeing them like come and work together on the ship was cool. Yeah, I think my favourite things were the science. I really enjoyed that, and like the kind of ocean, and the sort of the kind of claustrophobic horror. So I love it when things are happening on like a contained vessel type thing. So like it does it in Rhythm of War, where they're all in the tower and things are going wrong, and on this one it's like they're on the ship and there's really like no escape. And I like sci-fis where they have a ship and that it's like happening on the ship as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. There's a sapphic relationship as well between Tori and Olivia, and I loved that. That was really cute. Yeah, I just really enjoyed my experience reading it, and I would definitely recommend the audiobook. I thought that was really good, so would highly recommend. Okay, and then I read The Midnight Girls by Alicia Janiska, and this was an arc. I believe it comes out in December, and I give this one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. This one we're following these two girls. Yeah, they're like the apprentices of these witches. So one is Red Jagger and one is Black Jagger. They're the witches. And so Marinka, who's one of the main characters, she is apprenticed to Red Jagger, and she is also known as Midday. Marinka is known as Midday. And she is like this apprentice for the witch, and she goes and collects hearts for the witch, like hearts of pure souls or something. So the witch can eat them and get the powers. And basically her rival is Midnight, and she works for Black Jagger. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. So basically Midnight is always thwarting Marinka. And they have this kind of rivalry going on for a long time. And then the story kind of mainly kicks off when they both end up going to this other country where they are both tasked with capturing the prince's heart, because he's like a pure soul, so they both want the prince's heart. So they're kind of going up against each other, and obviously you know it's going to turn into like a rivals to lovers type thing, but I feel like the rivals bit was done so well, and it was almost like it wasn't even rivals to lovers, it was like rivals to rivals and lovers type thing. They were still like going against each other the whole time, but it's like that obsession with each other. I don't know, I just thought that was really good, and I really like the kind of villainous like female energy to the book. And I also really like the prince character, and he has a love interest as well, and I really like their story. They're kind of like lovers to enemies, so they're going like the other way, and the angst and like drama was so good in that relationship as well. And I just really loved the atmosphere. It sort of reminded me of like Anastasia a bit, just the kind of whole like, it was definitely sort of wintry vibes. There was like snow everywhere, and there's this kind of festival going on in the book, which I thought added a lot to the atmosphere. Yeah, and that whole like wintry kind of Slavic, I think, and also I think it's kind of has a lot of roots in Polish history, which I think the author is Polish maybe. And I thought that was really interesting as well. I like the sort of historical and political elements that were tied into it. They're not a huge part of the story, but they're kind of there in the background, sort of almost driving events, and I thought that was really good as well. Yeah, I just really liked all the characters, and like the romantic angst and drama was so good, and the writing very atmospheric. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that one. Okay, and then I read The Collapsing Empire by John Scalzi. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that surname, but this one is a sci-fi, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars, and honestly I had the best time reading this. I feel like the humour and just the kind of general like vibe of the story was just such a like entertaining time to read. Basically following this world which is called the Interdependency, and it's a kind of big intergalactic empire, and all the kind of different solar systems and things are connected by this thing called the flow, which is like a giant tunnel where you can like travel faster than light between different things, but the flow is collapsing. So various different kind of political factions are trying to monopolize what is happening to their advantage essentially. And we're following three main characters. So one who is Cardinia, and she is the daughter of the Emprox, who is the like ruler of the Interdependency, and the Emprox just dies at the start of the book, so she is now the new Emprox. So it's kind of following her trying to like navigate this new power that she has. And then we're also following some other characters. So Kiva, who is kind of the daughter of one of the powerful families, and she's so great, she's so entertaining. She's honestly probably my favourite character in the book. But yeah, she's just really iconic, her lines and stuff. She basically is kind of investigating and stumbling upon this conspiracy which is involved in a certain group family trying to take control of events for themselves. So she's kind of instrumental in like sorting that out. And then also the son of this scientist, who the scientist was someone who like knew many years ago that the flow was about to collapse, and so now he's going to try and warn the empire. The son is going to try and warn the empire because he's like his father's apprentice type thing. So yeah, I just really liked all the characters. I really liked the kind of whole like conspiracy type drama, and I thought the politics was really good. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to read, and I'm really looking forward to reading the sequels. And yeah, it's a great sci-fi. I feel like if you just want, I don't feel like it's too complex either, so I feel like if you're quite new to sci-fi you'd really enjoy this, and I feel like it's very accessible, and the kind of humour and everything just makes it feel like you're reading like a contemporary almost, but set in space, and I just really enjoyed it, so I would definitely recommend this one as well. Okay, then I read Wrath, which is the final book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, which I gave 4 stars, maybe 4.25. I don't know, no, 4.5, yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. And I thought this was a great conclusion. It just was very fitting and epic. It's a very epic series. I really like the characters, and I don't know what to say about the plot because like it's the 4th book in the series, but it was very like, it kind of predictable in a way, but it was like predictable in a very entertaining way. And I like kind of where things went. Some of the character deaths were so satisfying. Like there was so much you were just like, oh yes. And then some were quite sad obviously, but and actually towards the end there was a very like horror element to it. There was some things that happened which I was like, ooh, a bit like creepy, but yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I like, yeah, the characters. And it was so weird because Veridus, one of the characters, he actually had like a brain cell in this book. Like he was suddenly very clever, and it's like, what's happened to you, Veridus? But yeah, I really like him. My favourite character is probably Camlin, who was like this DILF, and him and Meg, who's this like little orphan that he kind of semi-adopts. I love their relationship, and they had so many great moments in this book. Oh, yeah, I still really need to make a video on the like grumpy old guy adopts young feral orphan type trope, because that's honestly my favourite, one of my favourite tropes ever. Yeah, so I really like that. Corbin, the main character, he's like a very standard fantasy main character, but he's very kind of lovable. Yeah, who else? There's a lot of kind of battles and action in this book, which I think probably is why I don't give it 5 stars, because there's less like character moments and emotions than I like in my books generally. That if you like action and battles, you definitely love this. I mean, I like them, and I feel like John Gwynne does a really good job of changing things up, because otherwise I feel like it would get really repetitive if it was just like, it is essentially battle after battle after battle, but the way it's written, you kind of still get fresh new things each time, which is good. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I like the ending, and yeah, just oh yeah, happy but also a bit sad to come to the end of my journey with Faithful and the Fallen. I mean, I'm sure I'll probably reread them one day, but yeah. So that's that series. Would definitely recommend. It's a great like classic fantasy series that's kind of super epic but has some really lovable characters, and yeah, so that's that one. Okay, then I read Redemptor, which is the 2nd book in the Raybearer duology. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. I didn't like it quite as much as Raybearer. I just feel like there was something kind of the magic of the 1st book slightly missing. I don't know if it was just because it felt like the book had a lot to tackle and a lot of plot to get through and kind of a lot to say, which was all very important, but it just felt too short. Like things just happened, and it just felt like it was almost like you didn't get any time with the characters or time with the events to like think about things. I don't know, I felt a bit like that. And then I really like Tarasai still as the main character. She's great, and I liked her journey in this book of feeling quite isolated and alone by stuff that had happened to her, and her kind of learning that it's okay to go to other people for help type thing. And I still thought the kind of atmosphere and writing was really good, although I feel like I missed a little bit some of the more sort of fairy tale aspects, especially in the 1st book. The kind of storytelling and things I feel like there wasn't as much of in book 2. And I think we didn't get quite as much of the like relationship between all the council siblings, which I really enjoyed in book 1. So yeah, I enjoyed it and I liked the story, but I feel like it just happened too quick almost. And it almost felt like the book had middle book syndrome, but it's the finale. So it's kind of weird. So it almost felt like this should have been a 3rd book, and then the content in book 2 should have been split into 3. No, so it should have been a trilogy, and the book 2 should have been split into 2, and then it could have been a bit more fleshed out, and like spent a bit more time with things, because I feel, especially like towards the end, there's this kind of underworld section set in the underworld, and I feel like that could have been so cool to like explore more, but it actually happens quite quickly. So I don't know, I just felt like I thought where things ended up was really good, and I liked the conclusion, but I would have just liked a bit more time with everything, I think, is my thoughts on that one. Okay, then I read Legacy of Ash, which I also gave 3.5 stars, and I really enjoyed this one as well. It's getting so dark outside. It's like 11 AM and it's like overcast and grey, which I actually kind of love that weather. It's very atmospheric. Yeah, so anyway, Legacy of Ash I really enjoyed. I think I didn't give it a high rating just because it's quite a long book, and it just took me quite a while to get into. Like, I never normally have any trouble with like characters and knowing who's who and things, but it did take me a while with this one. I feel like just because there's a lot of people introduced and you are a bit sort of thrown in. I don't know if it was just because I was reading it slowly, so I sort of forgot a bit, but definitely some characters sort of confused me a little bit at first, who was who. But once it sort of got established, and the second half especially, I think the second half alone I would give like 4.5 stars. But just because it took me a while to kind of work out like what was going on and get orientated in the world, I think I didn't give it a high rating. And the characters, I like the characters. I'm not like, they're not like new favourite characters of all time or anything, but they're very likeable characters, and easy to follow and interesting. And yes, so there's a lot going on in the book. We're following quite a few characters. Main characters, I would say, so Josry and Colleen are two siblings whose mother, in the prologue, essentially the mother has just caused this rebellion and she dies, so they're kind of living this legacy of a traitor essentially. So there's those two, and they're trying to almost like prove their place in the world. Well, Josry is trying to prove he's not his mother, and then Colleen's trying to escape from the like family legacy. And then there's Victor, who was the one who killed Katya, but he is, I love him, he's like such a cinnamon roll. And I'm not entirely sure what he's doing, some various things. Yeah, there's quite a lot going on. There's another character called Rosa, who, she's really good as well, I like her, but she has this kind of magical power where she like can't be killed. And then there's another character called Malachi, who's like an older character, and he is, I liked him as well. He's like, you know, that classic like DILF character in fantasy where they're like, they're reluctantly getting involved in events. I don't know, I like it. Like I was talking about Camlin earlier, it kind of reminds me of Camlin quite a bit. Yeah, and there's quite a lot of other characters as well. But yeah, I think looking back on it, I did really enjoy it. And I'm really enjoying Legacy of Steel. And basically a lot of kind of political stuff is going on. There's a kind of war between the like main sort of empire and this other empire. We're also following one of the characters in the other empire. Oh, who, actually, I have to say this. So her name is like Milana or something, like M-E-L-A-N-N-N-A. And every time I could not read her name without reading it as Melina in my head. And you probably, Melina is like this, it's a medical term for like black tarry stool. So every time it just made me cringe a little bit inside. So yeah, that was a slightly unfortunate name, but I'm sure it won't bother you unless you're like medical. But I kind of liked as well the magic kind of getting introduced. It's kind of like almost a bit creepy magic, and quite a lot of stuff like goes on. So I won't go through it because otherwise I'll just be telling you the entire plot. But I feel like if you're looking for like a classic fantasy, I would definitely recommend. It's quite epic, but also quite grounded in like familial relationships especially. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, there's a great milf, evil milf as well. Yeah, would read it just for her. Yeah. And I read Fool's Assassin, which is like the millionth book in the realm of the Eldlings. I think it's maybe actually like the 14th, but it might, and I gave it 5 stars. It might possibly have been my favourite realm of the Eldlings book so far that I've read. I just loved it. And I love Fitz, and I love the atmosphere. I especially like, so a lot of the book takes place in Withywood, which is kind of like their estate. I just love the vibes of that. This book was absolutely crazy. Like, I could not even though I sort of knew what was going to happen because I'd like spoiled myself and things, and looked up various synopses when researching characters, I still like, at every turn, like, it was like, what is going to happen next? And like crazy things were happening. Yeah, so that was kind of interesting, and like the way certain reunions happened were just so like iconic. I was so surprised to see Chade still alive. I don't know how he's managed to hang on this long, but yeah. And so Fitz, obviously I loved. B, who is a new character in the series, who is probably one of my favourite Robin Hood characters ever, and the relationship between Fitz and B, is probably, okay, Fitz and the Fool is my favourite, but Fitz and B is a very, very close second. I just loved their whole dynamic, and B. And yeah, so B has just some of the best like sassy lines. She's so like subtle about it, but she just absolutely like roasts people. And oh yeah, I just love her. I don't really want to talk about it too much because I feel like it's a book that's really good to kind of discover by yourself. Also, you probably wouldn't be reading it if you've never read any of the Realm of the Elderlings books. So I have a video with the Realm of the Elderlings reading order if you want to go to it. And it's not the order I read them in because I read them in a bad order. But yeah, and there's a lot of sort of Fitz just reminiscing about his life so far, and oh yeah. Yeah, it's like a slower book, but also you just want to keep reading because yeah, the kind of relationships explored and stuff are just so good. I'm very excited for Fool's Quest. And oh yeah, so the ending, the like last couple of chapters, so good. Just have me so excited for the next one, but also very scared. Yeah, okay. Editing Katie here. There's just a couple of extra points I wanted to mention about Fool's Assassin because I forgot to mention them when I was filming the video. So the first is, it's really interesting to see Fitz from someone else's POV because we get both Fitz and B's POVs in the books. It's really interesting seeing Fitz through B's eyes. Because I feel like so far we've only ever had Fitz kind of talking about himself, so it's really interesting to see that extra perspective. And also Fitz and B, again, just they really remind me of Simba and Mufasa, especially there's like some scenes where I don't know, but anyway, that was just a thought I had, but I just wanted to add that into the video. So yeah. And then the last book I read was Babylon's Ashes, which is the 6th book in the Expanse. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. I think this has been my least favourite Expanse book so far. I don't know why. I feel like a lot of it was just wrapping up what happened in book 5, and book 5 was like so good and so explosive, and I really liked how we were just following the kind of 4 POVs of the Rossi crew in book 5. So in this one there's a lot of POVs, and I think that was where I got a bit lost because like things would be happening and then it would suddenly switch, and usually there's like 3 or 4 POVs in the Expanse book, but I feel like there was so many in this one, like over 8, and there was like almost too much going on that you got a bit lost in the story. But I still really love like all the characters, basically, like the crew of the Rossi I love, especially with the new additions who, yeah, I think that was probably one of my favourite parts of this book, Bobby and Clarissa and their sort of journey to found family, and yeah, so I love that. And then, but I feel like some of the kind of politics and like action and the plot of the story, I feel like I got a bit lost because there was just so many like things going on and so many POVs that just, yeah, it was almost like too much, like that's why I gave it a slightly lower rating than all the other books I've given in the series. But I feel like this one was sort of wrapping up book 5, so a lot of kind of loose ends were being tied, which I feel like was probably why we got a lot of POVs and like why it felt like a lot was going on. But I think the way the book ended, I really liked, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things go in the next like 3 books, because they almost split into like trilogies, so I'm excited to see what happens in the next trilogy. Also, I feel like this one, book 6, was very like political, and not much happened with the proto-molecule, which was interesting, because I think the books tend to follow like a on-off pattern. So like there'll be one book process molecule heavy and then one book political heavy, and then they kind of swap, and I'm excited to see what happens next. And I enjoyed it, but I feel like, yeah, it wasn't my favourite book in the series. So yeah, so that is my wrap up for the month of September. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Comment down below letting me know your favourite book that you read in September was. Mine was probably Wisdom of Crowds, closely followed by Into the Drowning Deep. Definitely read some really good books this month. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope you're all having a really great day, and I'll see you next time.